Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Techie Talk with Aditya. In today's video, we are going to discuss a recent Cognizant Digital Nurture 5.0 Java plus React interview experience that was shared by one of the candidates on the Reddit platform. And I'm not just going to read the questions, I'm going to break down what exactly they have asked and most importantly, how you should prepare for this kind of interviews. So first, let's understand the interview. According to the experience shared by the candidate, the interview happened on 13th August 2026 and lasted approximately 1 hour and 13 minutes. And looking at the question, this was definitely not just a basic Java interview. The interviewer went right from core Java till the advanced Java, including Spring Boot, Spring Security, some design patterns, HTML, CSS, and DSA part as well. So this gives us very important signal that if you are preparing for this kind of interview, don't prepare Java topics independently. You need to prepare them as a connected ecosystem. Let's start with the first major area, that is core Java and object-oriented programming. So the interviewer asked about what are the 4 pillars of object-oriented programming, explain each of them and give some suitable examples for that. Now the candidate answered this question very properly. He explained all the 4 pillars that we have: encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance and polymorphism. Along with this, he also gave suitable examples for each concept. So at this point, everything was going pretty smoothly. But here comes the drama. Once the candidate finished explaining the 4 pillars, the interviewer took the question to completely different level. He said, okay, you have explained the concept and the examples. Now I want you to map these 4 pillars to your actual project. Like, where did you use encapsulation? He asked the candidate to explain each and every pillar with the exact usage in his application. For example, which class did you use? Which file contains that implementation? Can you please write the exact code of block over here? Why do you consider this encapsulation only? How the abstraction is achieved in your application? Where exactly is polymorphism happening? So basically, the interviewer wanted the candidate to map the theoretical object-oriented programming concept directly to the actual implementation of his project. And the candidate tried his level best to explain everything. He did a decent job in explaining that, but the interviewer kept pushing further and further into the implementation detail. And at one point, the discussion almost turned into an argument mode. The candidate was trying to justify his understanding and explain how the concepts were being used in his application, in his project, while the interviewer kept challenging the explanation. And finally, the interviewer said, okay, let's move forward. So this is actually very interesting part of the interview because the question started as a very basic oops concept, but eventually turned into show me the exact code. Can you please write the exact code where it is implemented, how it is achieved and all those things. And this is something candidates need to be prepared for, because knowing the definition of the 4 pillars is one thing, but being able to open your project and map those concepts to your actual code is completely different level of preparation. So the next topic that the interviewer asked about was exceptional handling. He asked the candidate, tell me every term that you know related to exceptions in Java. Now here, you need to cover all the important concepts that we have, like checked exception, unchecked exception, exception hierarchy, try, catch, finally, throws and all those things. Along with this, he also asked about the different exception methods that we have, like get message, print stack trace and get cause. And one more very important thing, you should also know how to create a custom exception. For example, if a resource is not present on the server, so instead of returning some random error, we can create our own resource not found exception and return an appropriate response to the client side. So if you can connect these theoretical concepts with the real usage in your project, your answers become much stronger, and that's what the interviewer is actually looking for. Then the interviewer asked, do you know what anagram is? So an anagram is basically a word or a string, we can say, formed by rearranging the characters of another word using the same characters with the same frequency. For example, listen and silent are anagrams. The candidate explained the concept and the interviewer also asked about the implementation logic of that. Then the candidate asked, can I write the code for this? But the interviewer said no and moved to the next question. And this time he gave a completely different coding question. He said, take date and time from the user as an input, subtract 1 day from it and then add 11 days, 3 hours and 32 minutes and print the final date and time on the console. So the candidate had worked with date and time in his project, so he was able to write the logic and explain the overall flow correctly, and he missed one import statement and asked for help with that. But the interviewer pointed it out, your logic and flow was correct, but you missed the import statement. So the conclusion is you should also be comfortable with Java APIs, the datetime APIs, syntax, and the required imports when you're writing the code in an interview. Okay, so once the coding part was done, the interviewer took a discussion to a completely different level again. He started asking about the features introduced in Java 8, Java 17, and Java 21. So he asked what new features were introduced in this version and what we actually know about them. For Java 8, he specifically went into functional interfaces, Lambda expression, and how to execute a Lambda expression and the method references as well. He also asked for the code implementation, not just a theoretical definition. While discussing the newer Java version, concepts like sealed classes were also discussed. So the important takeaway here is don't just prepare the Java 8 features. If you are mentioning Java 17 or Java 21 in your resume, be prepared to explain the important features introduced in those versions, and wherever possible, write a small piece of code for them as well. After that, the interviewer moved to SQL. He started with a very basic question. Do you know what exactly a left join is? So the candidate said, yes, I know what is left join. Then the interviewer gave him a situation. Like imagine you have two tables. The student table has 10 records, and out of those 10 students, only 9 have an address, and the address table has 12 records. So if you will perform a left join from student table to address, how many records you will get? The candidate answered 10. I will get 10 records. And the interviewer said, no, it is not a right answer. The candidate tried explaining his reasoning, but he kept on saying that it was a wrong answer and all those things. And honestly, this was the moment where candidate started thinking, what I am missing over here? Is my answer is right or not? And like this. Then he moved to another SQL question. Like we have union and union all. Then why do we need joins in SQL? After this, the interviewer gave him another task to create a table with the following attribute like student name, college name, city name, address, and along with this he also needs to tell which column will be your primary key and why. Then the interviewer asked about the stack and its implementation and give me some real world examples for that. And after that he moved to JWT authentication with Spring Boot. The interviewer also asked the candidate to explain and write the implementation for that JWT token. The interviewer also asked the candidate to explain and write the code for that. So the candidate knew the overall concept and tried to write the code, but a few lines were missing in that. Once this JWT authentication part is done, he moved to logging part. Candidate explained how logging can be used in his project, mainly to display the logs in the console, and also explained how logging is actually handled in companies by writing and retrieving logs from the file. And again, the counter question from the interviewer is, if you know this, why you haven't implemented it in your project? Then the candidate replied, I'm currently working on it. And the interviewer immediately asked, why you haven't worked on it earlier? Then came the question related to design pattern. So he asked about that strategy design pattern that we have. The candidate tried to explain it based on the knowledge that he had, but honestly, the interviewer was not clearly satisfied with the explanation. And after that, he moved to few HTML related question. He asked about special features that were introduced in HTML5. The candidate did not have the strong understanding about those features and could not recall them on time. But one question that went well for the candidate was the difference between the class level selector and the ID selectors along with their use cases. And finally, the relief. After almost 1 hour of questions, the interview finally came to an end. The candidate was asked if there were any questions from his side. He asked about feedback. The interviewer rejected that question. Then asked about the insights from the interview. Again refused. Then asked about the training structure and what happens in the future in Cognizant. The response was everything will be explained clearly during the onboarding. And that's it. That's how the interview ended, almost 1 hour. Object-oriented programming, exception handling, coding, Java 8, Java 17, Java 21, SQL, stack, JWT, logging, design pattern, HTML, and everything came one after another. And honestly, this wasn't an interview. this was a war as shared by the candidate on the Reddit platform. But at the end of the day, the biggest takeaway is you can prepare hundreds of questions, but you never know where the interviewer is going to take that conversation. So know your fundamentals, know your project, and most importantly, be ready for the unexpected questions in the interview as well. So that was the complete Digital Nurture 5.0 Java plus React interview experience for you. If you found this interview experience useful, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel Take It Talk with Aditya, and share this with all your friends as well. I will see you in the next video. Till then, keep learning, keep applying, and keep exploring, guys.